So I'm going to go ahead and put this in and we can get started. So everybody's looking at my screen. And we can start. It says, the space inside this circle represents my realm of knowledge. All that I think I know about whatever I think I know is depicted right here within this circle. I must keep in mind that there is more to know than what is within the circumference of my awareness. Sri Hagen. You know the deal, everybody. Uncle Jocelyn.
Jujak Chanel.
Yes, for sure, for sure. With all that's going on, we want to wish this to everybody, not only those who are here, but the people who are not here, those who, are, for whatever reason, are not in our presence right now. Um, this standard slide, we're metaphysicians, we study. It is very important that we study because everything around us is a part of metaphysics. It studies the nature of our existence and whether the world is real or merely an illusion. And as we talk about different things, keep this in mind because this is the fundamental. It says the fundamental view of the world around us. We know that everything is vibrating. Everything is vibrating, and all things in our universe are constantly in motion. So even objects that appear to be stationary are in fact oscillating, resonating at various frequencies. So resonance is a type of motion characterized by oscillation between two states. And ultimately, all matter, everything, no matter what it is vibrating at various underlying fields. And so, as such, at every scale, everything in nature is vibrating. There's a lot said there, and I'll try a little bit more about it a little bit later. But all these slides, I keep putting them up because they link together metaphysically. They link together metaphysically. We know when we talk about vibrations that anything you think, you're going to feel it because thought is a vibration. And if you feel it, you're going to vibrate it. You're going to sync and vibrate it. And once you do that, you are going to attract it because that is the law. That is one of the 7 laws. So we're in control. You cannot stop thinking, but you can control what you think about. And part of our studies, a good part of our studies, most of our studies, is not so much defining God because you can't define God. What we say here is the 3 dots behind a 2-letter word is, meaning that God is whatever you put behind those 3 dots, just another attribute of what this thing is. And we'll talk some more about it later, but we keep talking about it because the Africans did not have a word for this thing. They knew it was too big to define. So they had other things, netaru is what they call them, netars, that would be used for different facets of their life. No matter what it was, they had something because they knew this one thing was so big, they wouldn't even try to define it. And we know that, I think it's coming up, we're supposedly made in the image of this thing we can't define. And so when we talk about I am, you indicating your existence of yourself made in the image of this thing we cannot define. We call it God. And the word image in this definition has nothing to do with arms and hands and feet and legs and nothing that's physical. The ability to imagine, the ability to think, whatever it takes the great mind for creation, which is also evolution, one and the same, is something that we're made in the image of. We can do the same thing. In other words, the thought before the thing. The I am is often followed by an adjective or verb or a description to define a person's identity or state or action. And it can be used as a powerful personal affirmation to build self-esteem and change negative thought. But I want to always say I'll read it this way. It can be used as a powerful personal affirmation to build negativity. Because who is the thinker? Who you and I are the person who have the thought. And the thought makes the thing. Made in the image of this thing we call God. So there is that within us that partakes of the nature of the divine. And since it takes of the nature of the divine, we are divine. Something in us. We just said it, made in the image of God. So if God is divine, we too are divine. And I keep this definition up because the definition of the word divine is clear as day. It says of, from, or like God or a God. Of, from, or like God or a God. And if you'll notice, if we were a God, it doesn't have a capital G. It's a small g. It's a small g. Knowing that God is, this thing we can't define is so big we can't define it, and knowing that we're in it and we are like it in our thought and in what we do and in how we live the life that we live, we take a couple minutes to be grateful and show gratitude for where we are right now. No matter what it is, no matter what's going on, no matter what the struggle, please understand it can always be worse. So in being grateful and having gratitude, you allow the good to come to you because you're leaving that void. I'm grateful. You hold that gratitude and then exhale anything that's not in you that you don't want. Anything that you don't want in you, you let it go. And so what we do for a couple minutes is close our eyes and just relax. Close your eyes and just inhale the I am. Understand that whatever you think, thought, is a vibration. After you say I am is yours. You are claiming it in the same strength that you're vibrating in. Hold it. Hold it. Not like under the water, but hold it just enough to now let it go. Exhale, exhale. You don't need what you're exhaling, let it go. Again, we're going to inhale a nice deep breath. We're going to hold that breath. Again, not like underwater, just hold it. Take everything out of that oxygen because when you let it go, there won't be anything in it that'll be worth anything to you. So now let it go. Exhale, exhale. One more time, inhale. Nice, strong inhale, strength, gratitude, thanksgiving, purpose, reason. Hold it, secure it, and now let everything around that go that you don't need for the next hour. Let it go. We don't want it. Let it go. And now just breathe. Just breathe. God exists between the inhale and the exhale. Just breathe. It's really that simple. If we were in church, we would say amen. But where we are, studying what we study, we say ashe, meaning, yes, I agree. Ashe. I was saying that the PowerPoint is kind of crazy, but I wanted to we all know that with Sunday that we lost physically Karen, who is a charter member of this group. Karen Burke had been here for, I don't know, from Curtis, correct me, and Rosie. We kind of started, I'm going to say about 2000, 5, somewhere in there. And she kind of been with us. She was an avid reader. She would get into stuff and have some really, really good discussions. And I distinctly remember Karen always being a cog in the wheel. She always had some thoughts that, can you hear
Oh,
me? Can you hear me? That's Wendy. Okay. Hey, Wendy, how are you? Um,
Hello.
Karen would always have some question that would take us to another level, or in a lot of cases when we were meeting in person, to a longer period of time for the meeting to discuss things. And she would throw things out a lot of times that would make you think, make you kind of, because as a metaphysical student, she was searching too. And she was doing some of her own studies, and she would have some books from time to time, and she would read, and she would come back and she would share with us the stuff that she read, and we discussed it many times. And I remember too that and I guess I knew she may have been declining. I know when we were starting with the phone, and her getting on the system, some of the things she was doing was kind of a telltale and she was in pain. Obviously, she was in a lot of pain, but she still wanted to be around the group. She still wanted to get involved, and she would text me a lot of times and say she got stuff out of it. And it's funny because she would make the text and then I'd answer, and she wouldn't either the text a question and she wouldn't answer it, or she wouldn't come back. And I didn't put two and two together at the time. It's been going on for a while. I know Reggie Clinton and I, one time we spent a few hours with her. It was kind of funny because we were trying to get her online, and no matter what we did, it didn't work. And I want to say that in the suit, my son David and I did the same thing. No matter what we did, it wouldn't work. And she was going around in circles trying to get her phone to do all kinds of things. Um, she was enjoying the group. And again, she was a charter member. She was there when the group, with us when the group, if you remember, Curtis, we started out and we were trying to find somebody to lead this group because UFBL, Curtis, is that what it is? Universal Foundation of Better Living was where we kind of started. Curtis and I met, and then we brought from my group and from his group, we were trying to get somebody to actually keep us in the fold of UFBL, Universal Foundation of Better Living. And it wouldn't work. No matter what we did, it didn't work. We went through one semi-leader and it kind of didn't work. I don't want to call names, but it's funny now. She took our credit card and did some funny things with it, but we survived through that. And it was Karen who said, "Why do we need anybody?" And I distinctly remember her saying that. I mean, we've been doing okay by ourselves. Why do we need to be in a group? And it's interesting, here we are years later, almost 20 years later, and we're still independent. We're still not a part of any group, but we're still metaphysical students studying, openly going through different books, and openly accepting the stuff that we read and questioning the stuff we don't understand. And I think we've done okay. And I said all of that to say a lot of that was because of Karen Burke. A lot of it was because of Karen. So Sunday, she became an ancestor. And I wanted to take a few minutes because we talk about that a lot. We talk about us having respect for ancestors, and now immediately we have one in our group. So let me see if I can do this. I think I can pull this up. I was looking at, there it is. This came from the Atlanta University Center there, where the three colleges are. And what you see on the left there is a statue. It's actually called an Agri Efi, It's a divination container. And that word sounds weird, but what you see in the picture is there's a head there. Let me see if I can find. There's my cursor. There's a head there. And what it is the ancestors are all around this person.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
You sound like you got a picture up, but I don't see it.
The picture didn't come up?
No, I don't see your from your part. No.
Okay, does anybody else see the picture?
I don't see it.
I can't.
Nobody sees the picture. Okay. Let me go. Did you see the circle?
It's a blank page.
All right, so
No.
Okay, so I'll touch base with you Thursday or Friday in the evening.
okay, let me see what's going on.
You have my number. Oh, not a problem. And enjoy your.
Give me a second. Let me find out what's going on here. Chrome. Let's do this. 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 Ashe.
Okay, looks good.
Okay. And of course, let me do this. We did all our stuff. We actually went through I'll just real quick, I'll do this. We went through our circle. Nothing's unusual. And then Aku Jasaneb, greet everybody, prosperity, health, and life. And then explain our standard slides. Talked about vibration, and we talked about the fact that God is so big, we don't know how big God is. Question is, how big is it? And so again, who we are, I am, made in the image of God. And then we just understand that if God is divine, we're divine. And then we just breathe. And so now, where we are, Ashe, you should see my screen now. Let me go back to where I was, and you should see this. Do you see the statue on the left side? Everybody see that statue? That
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I see it.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. What this is, and I was saying that I had gotten this from the University Center there in Atlanta. It's in the Robert W. Wood Library, and this is a statue. It's actually called a Gir-Ifa, and it shows, if you will, there is a face. Here's my cursor. There is a face in there or a head in there that around it are figures. These happen to be females, but these are ancestors. And here, even in the bottom, you see things around the figure, ancestors. And it says here, and I'll try to read this, it's kind of small. Our ancestors are with us now. And if you want to locate your most imminent connection with the multidimensional spirit world, tune within. Within meaning within you. Consciously connect with your ancestral DNA, and everything else will be revealed through you. And according to one of my teachers, this is the guy that wrote the article, our ancestors are literally inside of us. They eat what we eat, they drink what we drink, they go where we go, and do what we do. This is an awesome way of comprehending who we are, where we are. We are living, organic, ancestral shrines. At the same time, creating and working within a dedicated physical space enhances our focus and appreciation for and connection with those ancestors who have lived extreme lives before us. And it says it's become a space of healing. So without knowing what folks have done before us, we wouldn't be here now. I mean, we talk about ancestors, but an ancestor, of course, and it doesn't matter about age either. An ancestor is anybody that has left this realm, width and height and depth, and moved on to a realm that's beyond us. And we do know that there are other dimensions. They have proven that. But in this physical realm, this is all we got. But between us is thought. and thought is vibrating. And what we need to understand is that when you're connecting in thought with someone who has been here, which actually distinguishes an ancestor from an angel. Angels are something that are created and they fly around with wings, created by whatever the thing is. Ancestors are actually people who have been here, who had lives and who now have spirits. And we have said that spirits don't die. So if spirits don't die, then we need to understand that ancestors are always somebody that we can communicate with in silence. Just breathe. Just breathe. And breathing is vibration. In thought, there's vibration. We have people in our families and friends and people that we know. You can hear a joke and you'll know that that person would like it. You can hear their laughter. You know the things that they may not like. Because of spirit. Spirits don't die. And so us as a group, when we do things, we study people who have been here before us, both ancient history, our history, and the history that we've gone through in the recent past, which is now being erased in front of our eyes. But a lot of people that we know of and heard of and experienced in our own life have gone through that. These are all spirits. These are all ancestors. These are all people, as we know more about them, you can learn what I just said, what they might like, what they might dislike. Because spirits don't die. And I think I had this also with comment was coming up. It says this, ancestors. It says, Curtis, somebody want to read that? Read that. This is a good explanation of ancestors. Can you read it? Can you see it? Is anybody geared up? You want to read that?
Okay.
I had my volume off.
Yeah, I know. I forget. We're on mute, and you should be on mute.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Across various spiritual and cultural traditions, ancestors are believed to possess the power to intercede on behalf of the living, offer guidance, provide protection, and mediate between humanity and higher divine powers. They are seen as guardians who can bestow blessings, share wisdom, or warn of danger. And that last part, I believe in that dearly.
Yeah. If you listen to your insides, your insides will talk to you. We are always surrounded by, and I go back to the Bible, I forget how the verses read, but I think it says something like, it was fire and it wasn't in the fire, and it was wind and God wasn't in the wind. I mean, it kept looking and looking and looking, and as it turns out, that it was in the still small voice. The still small voice, still and small, but a voice not like I'm speaking, but a voice that's inside of us that is always talking. The problem is we're the noisy ones. We're the ones that always have things going on. We're the ones with the short attention span. And so we don't get the message all the time. We don't get the ancestor that's telling us the thing that we need to know at the time we need to know it, because they're there. They're there. I believe that they're there. They didn't come here, and if spirits don't die, then they didn't come here and die and go to another world and not leave us with something, or look over our shoulder, or warn us of danger, or share some wisdom, or enlighten you for some reason. And I say that in lieu of the fact that we all grew up, and we may get a chance to look at that tonight too. under this realm of religion where we took a cross and a guy who initially wasn't even our color and somebody we couldn't even relate it to and found a way to relate to him, found a way to shed tears for him, found a way to just give him everything we got. It was just falsely done. And so now that we understand that there were people like us, matter of fact, we were the first people. There's no doubt, no matter, they're finding it out more and more and more now. More and more people are actually accepting the fact that we have the history. You know, we have the groundings and the foundings of any religion that's here. They may be modified and they may be twisted, but the foundings of them come from our quote ancestors. And so we study, that's why we study, so that we'll know more about these people who are the beginnings of what we call the human race. So when we talk about ancestors, again, the difference between an ancestor and an angel is a fictional thing. I don't guess I could say that. I want to say that because, I mean, you could be a good angel or a bad angel, I guess. And the same thing could go with your ancestors. I mean, if you have some things going on and you got old Uncle Joe and he's not here anymore, but he was a wino, you may want to be careful of how you use his wisdom. But his wisdom to you could be the fact that, hey, I saw what happened to him, and I don't want that to happen to me. I liked everything about him, but I'm not going to let that happen to me. Ancestral wisdom. But they're always talking, and we always should be studying because there's so many of them. Why? Because we're the oldest people here on the earth. We got tons of them that we can study. And so we study every Tuesday so that we know more about these people and we can take from them the wisdom that they have, the experiences that they've been through. I was looking at something the other day and it was interesting because as we go through, I had this, let me see if I can find that. Again, these are not in the greatest order, but I'll pull this up. This is Martin Luther King before, just before he passed. And he said this to Harry Belafonte. And he said, I fear that I am integrating my people into a burning house. And we had gone through so many things as people. We thought we were doing the right things. But if you really think about your ancestors, the ones that we know that came in on the ship, there's no way in the world they would think that this is a place they wanted to be. This is not a place they wanted to come to. I was reading about the numbers of people on the slave ships who actually went overboard because they said, if I'm going somewhere and I'm being treated like this on the boat, I'm just going to give it up. And there were stories of folks who actually took kids with them, families that went over because that wasn't what they wanted to do. So here we are in a country where a guy like Dr. Martin Luther King says, we're here, let's integrate. And then we find out just in the last year or two, a lot of people, we kind of knew it. They never really wanted you here. They never really intended to bring you here and have you equal with them. It was always an illusion of inclusion, even with 2 times having a Black president. It never really was something that was intended to happen. So here we are. And so now we have to take another look at where we are and where we're going. But if you think about it, and my point here is that ancestors, if we had listened to them, we would have known. By the same token, ancestors and the study of our history also lets us know that every time we built something, and the list of incidents is unbelievably long. We can call them, this group learned about Black Wall Street and I'm trying to think of when we were sitting in the house of Curtis and Rose's house, 2021, I believe. I think that rings a bell. I don't know. I might be wrong. I know we started looking at it because I found something that I had studied years ago, and it had talked about Black Wall Street, even before Black Wall Street was popular. But that's just one example. Rosewood, Haiti. I mean, I could go on and on of all the different places that when we did do what we do well by ourselves without any help from the other side, if you will, these places were all destroyed. And so the ancestors may have been trying to tell us something a long time ago, and we're finding out now that integration wasn't in our favor. But ancestors tell us these things. We have to listen to them. We have to read. And what we need to know is in books. I was on YouTube, and I was very, very interesting how all that stuff's twisted. There's a lot of twisted stuff on YouTube now. But that's done on purpose because if they can twist the story, you can confuse people and tell them anything you want to. I advise everybody when you can get your hands on a book, get the book. Because digital data it's been approved to change digital data. A book 2 years from now may have the same name, and there may be some stuff in the book that's not in the original book, and they don't have to tell the author. Buy books, read books. A lot of this stuff is in the books that we read. I try to recommend them as often as I can, even the pamphlets and brochures, because it's in the reading, it's in the understanding for us to know the truth of a lot of things. So with that, I wanted to just take that minute to talk about just again ancestors versus angels. Ancestors are not angels. I guess they could be angels, but ancestors are people who are really here. We have a long list of people who are really, really here, who have something to say, who have a lesson for us to learn so that we don't repeat the things that happened to them if we listen. So with that, I just wanted to say I keep in mind, of course, in consciousness, Karen Burke. She's again a charter member of this group, but somebody that I will remember for as long as I live. There's no doubt in my mind. And I considered her kind of a character, but she is no longer physically with us, but forever with us in consciousness. I think I had, what else did I have? Oh, yeah. I wanted to speak, we were looking at, let me go back because it's this book. Bear with me a second. Let me just do this because this is here. And we were talking a little bit about understanding, and the deal here is not to question whether God exists. We don't do that here. There's no way to imagine at our level how big and how bad, how grand this thing is. We use a three-letter word, but it isn't so much that we question it, we don't. It isn't so much that we don't believe in it. There has to have been something. We've even talked about creation and evolution being the same because things evolve. Billions and billions of years, I don't have that slide, where we looked at how we got here. But we got here through an evolution, which I wouldn't mind calling creation, because it took those billions of years for it to happen, doesn't make it creation. But in this book, Robert Greene, oh, by the way, this was interesting too, because the pamphlet that I got, it's dated, I downloaded it 2002. And so what I did was I found an updated copy, and I noticed that the one that I have has 65 or 70 pages in it, but the new one only has 32. And I wondered why. So as I was reading through it, I noticed that there were some things that they actually took out of. that's the point I was making just now about if you can get a book, even older books, the book doesn't have to be new as long as you can get your hands on it. Because once you got it, nobody's going to change it unless you mark in the book or tear the pages out. Nobody can go in and change that data. My theory is a lot of things will be twisted and told to us differently. And if you don't know, you'll be brainwashed. And I use that word lightly. So we want to do as much as you can, even if you don't read all the books, gather them, have them. Your ancestors, again, put books over the value of gold, which is why the library, which eventually ended up being the Library of Alexandria, was so big, which is also why they took the books that they could read, which is still a lot, and they burned the others. And it took, I understand, 2 weeks in our Anthony Browder book for that to burn. Just burning books, scrolls, if you will, back from the days gone by. So it's in the books. It's in the writings. The great book that people are reading is a book that came from other books. It's not an original book. And I wanted to, there is a section in here. Let me go to this now because I think I yellowed it. I did. And I'm going to try to, give me a second here because I think I see where I started. If you all can see the blue, right? What this is in the book Why I'm Agnostic by Robert Greene Ingersoll. He talks about basically everything. If you get a chance to read it, read it. Read it anyway. If you don't get a chance, read it because it enlightens a whole lot of what we study, and it helps you to understand things. And this little section that we're going to read now is a section, I'm flipping through my pages, that actually talks about our parents and how if I think the song says if it was good enough for mom, it was good enough for me, that old time religion. And we don't understand how we get to where we are, but we need to know what's going on here. So in blue, it says, it starts by saying, like the most of you. Will somebody just read that and let's talk about it? Because he's giving his own experience, like us, of the beliefs that's so standardly used. And we did it without question, but now we're looking at it, not so much to question it. You can question it if you want to, but to actually see just how, I'm going to use the word commonsensical. A lot of it is not. In other words, we believed it without seeing if it made any sense at all. So if somebody will start with where it says, like the most of you, it says, go ahead.
Would you like for me to read?
Yeah, go ahead, Curtis. I think you can see it pretty good. Oh, go ahead. Go. I was afraid of that. Yeah, let me give me a second because now I gotta find that page again. Again, my PowerPoint is kind of, I don't know what's gonna happen to it, but tonight we'll get by this. That was page, shucks. Let me keep going. Because this book doesn't match my pages. It starts out with, I think it's like most of you.
You keep going up, I can tell you, because
Let me go up
I can't remember. No, the other way.
the other way. On Sunday, I went to my brother. Let's see, Hark. Ah, shucks. Yeah, I have these things queued so that I don't have to do this kind of stuff. I think I went too far. Let me go back the other way because
Yeah, okay.
I'm on page 7. I want to think it was about page 5,
All right.
but I don't want to. And then once we make this point, it's something to think about, and then we can discuss more into it next week. But let's see. Shucks. I think I went too far. When I was a boy, I heard them talk of farmer. They used a story. Sermons are mostly about pain. I don't think this is it. I think, let me scroll down one more time, and I think it is down farther, but let me just be sure. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, wait. I think I'm recognizing something here. Aha.
Yep, like the most of you.
What's going on?
Yeah,
Did you see it still?
yeah, I thought it did.
I did too.
Uh,
Yes, did. Oh, I'm mad now. I apologize for this. I won't highlight it. Let me just pull it up. We can read it from there. Same time as suffered, they only. And I like most of you, there it is.
yes, there we go.
Okay, go ahead, Curtis.
Like the most of you, I was raised amongst people who were certain they did not reason or investigate. They had no doubt. They knew that they had the truth in their creed. There was no guess, no perhaps. They had a revelation from God. They knew the beginning of things. They knew that God commenced to create one Monday morning, 4,004 years before Christ. They knew that in the eternity back of that morning, he had done nothing. They knew that it took him 6 days to make the earth, all plants, all animals, all life, and all the globes that wheel in space. They knew exactly what he did each day, and when he rested, they knew the origin, the cause of evil, of all crimes, of all disease and death. They not only knew the beginning, but they knew the end. They knew that life had one path and one road. They knew that the path, grass grown and narrow, filled with thorns and needles, infested with vipers, wet with tears, stained by bleeding feet, led to heaven, and that the road, broad and smooth, bordered with fruit and flowers, filled with laughter and song of all the happiness of human love, led straight to hell. They knew that God was doing his best to make you take the path, and that the devil used every art to keep you in the road. He knew that there were a perpetual battle waged between the great powers of good and evil for the possession of human soul. They knew that many centuries ago God had left his throne and had been born to bathe into poor world, and that he had suffered death for the sake of man, for the sake of saving a few. They also knew that the human heart was utterly depraved, so that the man by nature were in love with wrong and hated God with all his might. At the same time, they knew that God created man in his own image and was but perfectly satisfied with his work. They also knew that he had been thralled by the devil, who with wiles and lies and deceived the first humankind. They knew that in consequences of that, God cursed the man and woman, the man with toil, the woman with slavery and pain, and both with death, and that he cursed the earth himself with briars and thorns, brambles and twinsels, and all those blessed things that they knew. They knew too all that God had done to purify and elevate the race. They knew all about the flood, knew that God, with the exception of 8, drowned all his children, the old and young, the bald patriarch and the dimpled babe, the young man and the married maiden, the loving mother and the laughing child, because his mercy endured forever. They knew too that he drowned the beasts and birds, everything that walked or crawled or flew, because his loving kindness is over all his work. They knew that God, for the purpose of civilizing his children, had devoured some with earthquake, destroyed some with storm or fire, killed some with his lightning, millions with famine and pestilence, and sacrificed countless thousands upon the fields of war. They knew that it was necessary to believe that these things and to love God. They knew that there could be no salvation except by faith and through the atoning blood of Jesus Christ.
Okay, stop there. Stop there. Okay, so all of these things were never questioned by, I know my people didn't question it. My parents, my mother and aunt and the folks in the church, they didn't question any of that. They didn't they didn't question the fact that if this God made these people perfectly and was perfectly satisfied with them, that for him to destroy them later on for some reason may have been a mistake on his part. Because in saying that, we were saying that God doesn't make mistakes. But here we're looking at something where that can't be true. Look at what happened. And when we look at later on in the book, this guy talks about how he studied astrology, the stars. And he talks about how we know that on the first day, he says it here, God starts on a Monday or whatever, and he creates everything. And in 7 days, he's put all this stuff in the sky. And when you look at astrology, we got stars that have been there for two million years. It's 2 million years. And that's the time it takes for the light to move. And so whoever wrote the Bible could not have known all these things. Our parents, my parents, did not question this. I grew up in that household. I respected everything that was in that book. It didn't matter if it said if it said it wrongly. But now we have to look at things totally different, especially when I want to put this up, and I'm done. This right here is the verse that we looked at from last week. And this was in Romans 16. It states that it does not therefore depend on human desire or effort, but on God's mercy. But what Curtis just read is a whole bunch of stuff where even though things were done perfectly and approved, they were destroyed. Something's wrong. So even though, and it says in this passage, the Apostle Paul, by the way, we studied Jesus, it wasn't so much about Jesus, it was about the Apostle Paul when you talk about the Bible. You may or may not remember that. I don't want to get into it now, but it says in this passage, the Apostle Paul emphasizes that salvation and God's blessings are a result of his sovereign grace rather than human striving or inherited rights. So even though you might do all that is right, defined in the book, you could still go to where hell. So it leaves you, if you read it, and if they had read it and really thought about it, and you say, well, what am I supposed to do? Even if I do everything that I think is right, I can still go to hell because it does not therefore depend on my desire or my effort, but on God's mercy. And then when we look at God's mercy, he's building things and then destroying them. It leaves the question. It leaves us to question. So I wanted to pull that out and kind of mix some new stuff with some old stuff there. By Martin Luther King, I have the slide. I don't have it here tonight. When he wrote his dissertation, he was in school, he started reading some African history. And he said, I'm reading this stuff, but this stuff is older than the Bible. There must be more. I have that slide somewhere. And he knew. I've always said, for those of you who knew Reverend Mary, those of us who came from that side, she knew. She couldn't tell the people because they weren't ready for it. I strongly know that she was an avid reader. I mean, an avid reader. She knew. But she knew that she couldn't tell the people, so she only told them what she thought they were able to handle. So with that, let me see, what time is it? I'm going to go, 8:01. It's not too bad. With that, I got the floor is open. We talked about ancestors. We talked about ancestors being different from angels. We talked about Reverend Martin Luther King saying, even though we did all this fighting and we crossed the bridges and we got knocked in the head, he's saying at the very end before he died that I may have led my people a wrong way. I mean, I may have. Where are we? And what do we believe? Where are we going? What do you think?
Well, I don't want to say my 2 cent worth, if I may.
Okay.
I used to be Baptist. Mother used to take me to church, so forth and so on. But for some strange reason, I had some doubts about some things. It just didn't seem right to me. But as I came up and started seeing things, and I don't know, this metaphysics, and I'm so glad that I was introduced to it. And now, just going through, New Thought, as they call it, also.
That's right. That's correct.
And I don't know if people have heard of Unity Village, or forgot the guy's name. What is it? That had Unity Village.
I just drew a blank too. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but anyway.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And then started reading things about that, and Johnny Coleman, up there in Chicago. I'm telling you, it just turned me on, and man, I just feel like right now, I feel so great, and knowing that I have the power to do a lot of things, even though it might not show up, but I do know about the subconscious mind, and anything that you add to the I am.
Yeah.
So I'm happy I got into this.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny thing with religion is religion gives you a scapegoat, because if you need a crutch, for example, if something happens, and I've said it years ago when I was thinking that way, that must have been God's will. And we're reading that God wills one thing one day and then wills something else the next day. How do you know what his will was? Maybe it was the wrong day. We can get more into that when we study this, but we find out that the weak link in the chain is always going to be you. When I say you, I mean me too.
Mhm.
The weak link in the chain is going to be because I didn't believe the way I should have believed. The weak link in the chain is going to be why something didn't happen is because I didn't. And sometimes believing may entitle persistence. It may take longer. It may be a grueling thing that has to happen, and it may be persistence that is required.
Mhm.
But believing in persistence may get you any and everything that you want. We talked about prayer. I won't get into that. I'll make a note of it. We talked about, I pull that slide up from time to time. And the 5 steps of prayer, I'm going by memory, is one, to acknowledge that God is all there is, not all these different gods that are all over the place, but I want to dare say that God is in the form of everything that's vibrating. And if I say that, then we got to think really, really, really big. So if God is that big, then I have to, when I do pray, I got to understand that I have to admit that I'm a part of that. Number one, that's what God is, and number two, I'm a part of that. And that if that's the case, then already anything that I want, I got to be grateful for it before it shows up. Why? Because the thought comes before the thing. And then I got to believe that it's going to happen. And then before it even shows up, I got to say that I'm grateful and I'm thankful that that is here. Even though it's not physically here, it's here. And then I have to release it, because releasing it only confirms that I now believe in what I just said. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. It's work. It's practice. Metaphysics. I am. I am because God is. And I'm made, we just said it coming in, that if God is divine, then I must be, because I am made in that image, divine also. How do I communicate? We talked about ancestors who've been here. It's just making sure we understand everything we said tonight. Just be still and breathe. What you hear in silence can be very, very loud if you learn how to listen in silence. We don't do that. So I'm like Curtis, and I'll say this, and from my perspective, there's things we still will be going over and stuff, but I'm glad that I learned what I learned. And it's interesting that once you get to a certain perspective of metaphysics, things kind of look differently. And we say that sometimes. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And so we know from the basketball example that the hoop doesn't go anywhere. The hoop stays there. It's stationary. And if you want that ball to go in the hoop, I've got to make some changes. It'll accept it. Whenever I do all that I need to do, it'll go right in the hoop and do whatever it's supposed to do. But I'm the one that's got to make those changes. That's why we study. That's why we do what we do on Tuesdays. Tons of books, tons of things we're going to get into. By the way, I haven't forgotten about our book. I don't have the slide in front of me, but I haven't forgotten about the Anthony Browder book. We probably need to go ahead and finish it up. little by little. But there's so many different pieces of material that we can look at that helps us to make the picture, because everybody on this phone call sees things a little bit differently. So sometimes when it comes at you a different way, you say, aha, that makes sense. Because it's important that it makes sense, because it's the common sense that gets you over. It's the fairy tales. We can enjoy them. I mean, they're there, and the book's got a lot of fairy tales in it. But the common sense is what's going to get us over. The common sense is what's going to make things work for us. The common sense is going to be the answer to all the questions. And they say the answer to the question is sometimes in the question. Why am I doing this? Because you say you're asking why. If you're asking why, you're not believing. Anything else? Anybody have? We're all students. We're all studying this stuff. Good stuff. Who was that? Go ahead.
It's Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Hey, I got a question, like, well, about the ancestors.
Okay.
Okay, I heard someone talking about it. Wasn't talking to me, but I was just listening. And then also I heard it somebody talking, on the internet also. They were saying that why are we talking to the ancestors when the reason why things are so messed up now are because of them. They left us in a mess and sold us out. So why are we talking to them when they did nothing for us? I didn't say I believe any of that, but why are so many black people turned against that?
Yeah. A couple of things you're saying there. There was the incident of some of us selling us when you talk about I'm assuming you're talking about the slavery part of it and the selling of us when we were comfortable in our homes. And there was some people who sold. We're going to always find those kind of people. They're going to exist. And the other side of that is in the books that I read, mentioned that they did not believe that people could be so evil as the people are now. Chattel slavery didn't exist with them. In other words, if two tribes had a fight, then yeah, they would capture the people, and there would be something called indentured slavery, where you might have to work for them for 2 years, 4 years, or whatever, and then, but they never intended that not only would your life be a slave, but you would then be bred for a slave, and your kids and your kids' kids are going to always be slaves. These people were evil. These people were evil. And so, again, I mentioned that the ancestors, when they came over here on these ships, they didn't want to come over here. They were fine where they were. They had everything they ever needed was there. They didn't have any reason to want to come here. There was nothing here. So they didn't betray us. That's number one. Number two is if you look at the concept of people, yeah, if there were some people who were off and who did some things that were not right, then think about it. Is that not a lesson from an ancestor? We just talked about the uncle that drinks. He might have been a good uncle until when he drinks, he's a bad guy. Well, what is the lesson you got from him? As an ancestor, man, I'm not going to be drinking. If I do, I'm going to really watch what I drink. You're gonna do something based on what you learned from that ancestor. And we're using these as general examples because they're so clear, but that's what we're talking about. This is not to say that every ancestor before us, or the ones that we know of or heard of and study in our studies, were all good. They weren't. But there is something there to be learned for us, because what we're doing now, what we're going through now, they've gone through. They've seen all of this. Did I answer your question, Wendy? Kinda?
Yes, sir. I just never heard nobody talk about, the ancestors like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Calling them
again,
evil spirits and all kind of stuff.
well, again, ancestors, the ancestral realm, and that's why I pull that slide up, is ancient. Religion is new. Spirituality is ancient from your ancestors. Religion is new, modified and changed around. That's why you got so many gods. Remember, we just said that the Africans didn't have a word for this thing that was so big, we can't even begin to define it. I mean, everywhere I look, I think this is Whitworth said, everywhere I look, I see the face of God because it's that big.
Right.
So why are you looking for a figure or a statue or, you know, there's respect there. We just did it when we did our breathing. We breathe in something that the earth takes and uses it, turns it around and makes a complete cycle. It's perpetual. It goes on and on and on until we destroy it by diminishing that. And then what happens? Your air gets bad. Who are you going to blame for that? Somebody who didn't have respect for, quote, God, God, because that is a form of God. So as a physician, we study everything. You get to, we can go over it again. There's laws tied to to uh, understanding and seeing God, but we studied those. We have books. That book, The Journey of I don't know if anybody else has it, but we studied that book. And you can study the 7 laws. Some of them are mutable, some of them are immutable, meaning that you can't change them, you can't do anything, but they are what they are. It's, kind of like gravity. It's your friend walking around, and if you want to skip rope, it's your friend. But if you go up to a tall building and jump, it's not your friend. But it's the same thing like that basketball goal. It does exactly the same thing it's always done. It doesn't change. Evolution and creation are one and the same. Something to think about. I mean, it's something to think about given all these fairy tales in the book. The suit's not, I don't think he's on tonight, but I think that's his specialty. He loves it because he laughs sometimes. He'll say, "Holy smoke, look at what this thing says." And he'll come out of some deep corner in that book. And I read the book, but I didn't see everything. When somebody tells you they're a Christian, ask them point blank, have you read that whole book? And when you say you believe in that book, what part do you believe in? Because if you believe in the whole book, you're a nutcase. You have to be. There's no way to believe everything in that book and be okay. It's an impossibility, let me put it that way. This is why we study. So, with that, if nobody has anything else, I want to go back and then we're done. I want to show you this because I had some help tonight. And let me see, because my files aren't that good. This is that. We would be here, right? As a close. And we're talking about it, and we talked about going forward. But tonight, going forward from tonight, we won't use this. We're going to use, hope this works out, Reggie. The prayer of protection. Take a minute and look at that, and we can read it together. You guys see that? Tell me you see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, we're not questioning whether God exists. We know that there's a God. It's just that God is so big that everything that vibrates is God. Everything that vibrates. But what we can put our hands on and feel that this is the way we go is we have ancestors who have been here who are also vibrating because spirits don't die, and spirits are also a form of vibration. And so the prayer of protection reads now, and we can say it together. The light of ancestors surrounds us. The love of ancestors enfolds us. The power of ancestors protects us. The presence of ancestors watches over us wherever we are.
Ancestors.
Ancestors are. I think I'm here. You know the deal. Thanks, everybody. Uncle Johnson, for sure, for sure.
Uncle Johnson.
Yep.
Okay.
Take care.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
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 Thank you, Carl.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you all, man.
Carl,
Hey, Rosie,
yeah, if I hear anything else, I'll let you know.
please let me know.
Okay, will do.
Thanks
Good
a lot.
night.
All right.
Good night.
Okay, good night, all.
Hey, take care, everybody.
Same to you.
Oh, by the way, if nobody know, if you didn't get the link, I tried to upgrade the link. These are all on our channel now. So you could go to YouTube. It'll be a while before I can put it on, a couple of hours, but it'll be on at least in the morning. So you'll be able to go back and look at this if you want to. Take care.
You too, Carl.
All right.